Shaner.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Waters.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye. I move we adjourn the closed session. Second.
Scott.
Aye.
Waters.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
O'Kane. Oh, sorry, Shaner. Did I say Shaner?
Call the roll, please. Good start.
Gonna go well today. I can. Moore.
Here.
O'Kane. Shaner.
Here.
Scott.
Here.
Waters.
Here. We stand for a moment, silent prayer followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Today, the consent agenda is items 2 through 10D. You can consider that those items pass unanimously unless a separate roll call vote is requested by a council member. If you want to speak on one of those items, please come up as I read it. Be sure and state your name and address for the record. If you want to speak on an item not on the agenda, please come up under citizen concerns. I'll move the consent agenda. Second. 2 is a reading of the August 12th City Council minutes. 3 is a resolution temporarily closing various downtown streets for the Sioux City Baggers Tournament. 4 actions relating to grants. A is a resolution supporting an application by the Sioux City Symphony Orchestra to the Iowa Economic Development Authority for a community attractions and tourism grant for the development of the Gilchrist Music Education Center and identifying financial support from the city. B is a resolution approving an application to the Iowa Finance Authority National Housing Trust Fund Program for the construction of 17 units of permanent supportive housing for individuals and families experiencing homelessness and 7 units of affordable housing located at 13th Street and Douglas Street. Jill, you want to say anything about that, or just, I mean, you don't have to if you don't want to, but.
Oh, come on, enlighten everybody. Come on, Jill. Seriously. Thank you.
Jill Wanderscheid, Neighborhood Services Manager. So this is a National Housing Trust Fund grant application opportunity that the state of Iowa has put out. What we're requesting is over $3 million, about $3.7 million, to create 17 units of affordable or permanent supportive housing, which provides housing for those that are transitioning from homelessness, in addition to case management. So the rents are fairly low, about $486 for a 1-bedroom and $780 for a 2-bedroom. We also are proposing a match that would create 7 units of affordable housing, and that would be funded with our home funds. And so that would be limited to people that are 80% AMI and below. So with the application, we had to show cash flow for the next 30 years because these do have to remain affordable housing for 30 years moving forward. So this would be a new grant for us. We have not received this before. The city would act as the developer and then contract out the property management.
And that's those lots up there that that deal was going to be that we.
Yes, yep, across from the old Casa Bray.
Yep, okay. Thank you.
Thank
you.
you. This is wonderful.
Thank you.
We'll see if we get it.
5 are actions relating to agreements and contracts. A is a resolution approving a grade crossing signal installation agreement with BNSF Railway Company for the crossing located at Iowa Street. B is a resolution approving a donation agreement with Parks and Recreation Foundation for the use and benefit of the Chris Larson Park Riverfront Development Project. C is a resolution approving a license agreement with the Department of Energy, Western Area Power Administration for the Plywood Trail Phase 3. D is a resolution awarding a service provider agreement to the Clausen Group for the Sertoma Park Cone Park Progressive Line Landscaping Project. E is a resolution approving a contract with Cargill and the Iowa Economic Development Authority, the property at 1016 Clark Street. F is a resolution approving a contract to Steve Harris Construction for Broken Kettle Road Sanitary Sewer Expansion Project. Gordon, not here. Well, I'm not sure you can answer it, but there was $100,000 worth of ARPA funds in this, and it came in over $100,000 under budget. So I don't know why we would use ARPA funds anymore. I don't think that's fair to the rest of the world that's paying to have these done.
And I had actually sent Gordon an email as well, Mayor, agreeing with you. That I thought since it came in 100 under, that I would be all for using those funds elsewhere.
You understand what we're saying?
Redirecting them.
Justin Potter, Senior Civil Engineer. Yes, we'll make those changes.
Okay.
Do we need to make an amendment to this, or?
No, this is just the contract, but funding, Bob, you'll have to,
Yeah, I'll work with Teresa.
okay, here comes the ARPA lady right here.
Teresa Fitch, Finance Director, Mayor and Council. I will work with Gordon to move those around, and we'll be bringing another allocation change. I do want to warn you that we still have $15 million that we need to promise by December 31st of this year.
Right, right.
So it needs to be encumbered, not just allocated.
Well, you better get it going.
Correct. So I may be working with Gordon on some of his other items that are already designed to utilize some of those funds for at least like the master plan and those types of things that we'll discuss. I do know that Tom has some wastewater items that he's working on.
Definitely.
But we need to have them encumbered by the end of this year.
Thank
And-
you.
Yep, thank you.
G is a resolution approving a contract to Subservco for the undersized water main replacement project. I need to abstain, conflict of interest. H1 is a resolution granting a permit to Fibercom to maintain underground cable commencing at the area of Myrtle Center and West 21st Street. H2 is a resolution granting a permit to Fibercom to maintain underground cable in the area of Expedition Court and Al Haynes Drive. 6 are actions relating to personnel. A is a resolution amending the authorized personnel complement position classification manual and salary schedule by reclassifying the community inclusion liaison to a diversity and inclusion coordinator in the human resources department. I'd like to pull this for a separate vote, please.
Mayor, I would also just update you and council to let you know that this did go before the Inclusive Advisory Committee to get their feedback. City manager was able to work with some of the different members that had thoughts about the position, whether it was concerns or things that they thought were going well that they wanted to ensure that continued. They had a couple other points of clarification, but otherwise, with the exception of a couple of people still felt that the word or the title liaison was most appropriate rather than coordinator. It seems that a lot of those changes were able to be worked in to the position and made so that the advisory committee, I believe, was formally in favor of the position and the classification.
Okay.
How many are on that now?
I believe there.
Six voting members. Six. Myself as non-voting members.
Correct, and I believe there are 4 openings right now, if I remember right.
That is correct.
Yeah.
I still,
No, you're fine.
reservations. Call the roll.
Shaner?
Aye.
Scott?
Not because of anything that happened, I think Mr. Padmore can confirm, I said a long time ago, I question this position, and I'm not blaming anybody. We all have responsibility, us included as council members, for probably not giving the type of direction that we thought we needed to give, and I'm just not comfortable, especially in this age where you have to be even careful doing this type of stuff, because the state has laws now that this position's going to have a real significant impact on our operation, so I'm going to vote no.
Waters?
Aye.
Moore?
Aye. B is a motion accepting the annual evaluation of the museum director. Do you have any, I'm sure you have lots of good things to say about your director, so go ahead.
I'm David Hallis, 4015 Perry Way. I serve as chairperson of the Board of Trustees of the Sioux City Public Museum. Just 2 things. One is we want to affirm the leadership of Steve Hansen. And secondly, we are appreciative of the support that you all give to the work that happens at the museum. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
7 are actions authorizing payments. A is a resolution authorizing payment to W.A. Klinger for the Chris Larson Park Riverfront development project. B are resolutions approving fund transfers for July. And C are motions approving total expense receipts for July. 8 is purchasing. A is a resolution canceling the purchase order to Knepfler Chevrolet for one 2023 Chevy 2500 cargo van. B is a resolution awarding a purchase order to Knepfler Chevrolet for one 2024 Chevrolet Express 3500 cargo van. 9 are applications for beer and liquor license. 10 are boards, commissions, and committee minutes. Anyone to be heard on any of those items? Passes 4-0. Recommendations of planning and zoning. 11 is an ordinance rezoning 3700 Jefferson Street. The petitioner is Dolph Ivner. First consideration was approved August 5th. Second consideration was approved August 12th. Somebody will have to move that.
I'll move that.
Second. I'll second it. There are people here to speak, so we should let them
Yeah.
speak. Is there anybody to be heard on this item?
David Raymond, 2701 41st Street. It's pretty disappointing that I'm the only person in 3 readings to speak to you about this or against this, but you know why, don't you? Why do you think, Dan?
Well, you sent us a couple of.
I sent you an email, yeah.
Yeah, you sent us a couple of emails, and I have some comments.
The city sent 27 notices about this. 27.
Right.
Within, I don't know what the radius is, 250, 300 feet, I don't know. So nobody on the opposite side of Floyd Boulevard got a notice. I don't believe Jolly Time even got a notice, according to your map. Did anybody talk to them? Anyway, I think it's too big of an issue to not let all these people, like I sent in my email, there's at least 500 houses within a quarter mile of that site. And virtually all of Leeds is within a half mile of that site. And I mean, I've got nothing against Knife River. Absolutely nothing against Knife River. I just don't think that that's a good place for them to be. I mean, your 2020, or your 2005 comprehensive plan, by the way, is that going to get replaced before it's 20 years old? I remember I asked this before last year about a different issue, and I was told it was going to be done that in November. But anyway, your 2005 plan says that's an industrial area, but why is that parcel currently commercial? What's the reason if that's an industrial area? Anyway, you read my email, and hopefully you saw the response I had to Alex's response to me.
Yeah.
I think that there's too many people that are going to be affected, could be affected by this, and financially, it could affect house sales, how fast you can sell your house, the value of your house if you're being that close to what Knife River does. Quality of life from noise, dust, the smell of the asphalt. I mean, all things that Knife River should be doing and needs to be doing. I just don't think it needs to be doing it in that area. So I'm just going to ask those of you that vote yes to explain why you're voting yes, not just say yes. Tell me you think it's not going to affect these people, or that, just explain your vote, defend your vote. And Mr. Mayor, I know you voted no twice already. I'd just like you to repeat why you voted no. Thanks.
I think your comments are good. The one thing I want to say, and it's a partial answer to your question, is that we do 3 readings. Sometimes we waive the rules and do all 3 readings at the same time. Well, we spread this out over 3 weeks, so for the August 5th, 12th, and 19th. And I was quite frankly, like you, last week on the 12th, we didn't have any discussion, we didn't have anything, we just took the vote.
Right.
And I was troubled by that, and I was troubled enough to get my thoughts organized, and I have some things I would like to say about this item.
Well, how do you expect anybody to know about it?
Well, just from our first reading and having it,
How many people
on.
watched?
It
I'm
was
sorry
in the
to interrupt
paper,
you, but how many
David. It
people
was in the
watched?
paper.
It was in the paper?
Yeah.
But sometimes it works. Sometimes when we spread out the 3 readings, it works. We'll have somebody come to the second readings. We'll have more people maybe come to the third readings.
I couldn't find it on the paper, but, I'm not a subscriber.
What?
I looked
Yeah.
on KTIV, and the only thing I found was the title of
Okay.
the story
It was
was
on the
council to
journal,
vote
said
on
something about it.
multiple projects.
But I will say this, your emails helped a lot, and I just had to step back and start thinking this through by the third reading. So I have some concerns as well.
Well, I just think if you're relying on views of the YouTube channel for this council meeting, last week's only has less than 200 views right now, as of today. And there's not many
But
people
here's the
here.
problem I got. When it affects you, and I'm not picking on you, I'm talking about you, meaning the public, all of a sudden the state law should have to be changed and we should have to go out 500 feet or 600 feet or 700 feet. But when 90% of these don't affect anybody, the 300 feet works. Listen, I voted against it from the very beginning. I'm not for it, but that's beside the point. If people have a problem with the notifying, it's not the city's job to do. We do what the law requires us to do. And I don't know how I can say, because this affects you, well, doggone it, that we should go out 1,000 feet. You know what I'm saying? That's because what affects you today, maybe somebody else will come in next week and have the same exact problem. So I don't know how you do it.
Well, I'm not saying that you should be required to notify beyond a certain, I don't know how you would quantify that for each project, but I'm just saying use some common sense and think, hey, this is going to affect, thousands, maybe, I don't know how many people live in Leeds. But
I have coffee in Leeds, and people down there that I have coffee with seem to know a little bit about it, so I don't know the answer. We had the same complaint with the housing back up behind us, that somehow we didn't notify enough people on that, but I don't know how you do it differently. I'd be open to suggestions, but, we can move to defer this and.
Well, I don't know if that's going to change anything anyway, since I'm the only one here, but, like I said, I'm not saying that you'd be required, but the state law, whatever it is, does not prevent you from notifying more people, does it?
But that's
Let
at,
the mayor's-
that's at the expense of the developer.
What,
We don't pay for that.
what does it cost you to send a press release to TV and newspaper?
What is it, what?
What does it cost you to send a press release to Sioux City, to the Journal? And
These guys have been here every week, and they ask me questions every,
But like I said, though, only 200 views on your YouTube channel, and I don't know, that article, council to vote on multiple projects does not grab my attention.
but the stations are here every week, and if there's anything, they've asked questions on this before. I don't know. I just don't know how we do it a whole lot different, I guess. I'm not being smart. I'd like to know, because that's the age-old, after something happens, they say, well, we didn't know about it. Okay.
That's what I'm saying, is it's gonna come back when there get to be complaints, and they're gonna say, who voted for this, and you're on record. So,
Well, we live with that on every vote we make, so that's kind of, yeah.
I have some comments to make, Mayor, if there isn't anyone else to be heard at this point.
Go ahead.
But I've been thinking hard about this ever since our first reading. And also another point I wanted to raise is that you're right, the elected officials, we on the council, have to watch out for everybody in the community, not just developers, not just the residents, but everybody. Here's a difficulty I've run into, and it's a huge, difficult problem for me, because there's some inconsistencies. And Chris Madsen, I might just ask you to come up to I just want you to say, Dan, I want to correct you on that. But let me just start out with these comments. And I have some fundamental comments. I was on Planning and Zoning Commission for years before I got on the council. And I'm having a real difficult time balancing the coexistence of heavy industry coexisting with residential areas that close to each other. And so, and in your surrounding zoning and land use report that you gave, to the north of this parcel, it's general commercial and commercial retail. And to the south, it's general commercial and PI and the Floyd River. To the east, it's industrial or general industrial and the BNSF Railroad. And to the west, it's general commercial Canadian National Railroad. So it's primarily general commercial, the surrounding area. You've got it to the north, you've got it to the south, you have it to the west. The other, and so I struggled just with that principle in planning, and these are just my thoughts. I'm not being critical of planning and zoning, do a great job. You know that. I've supported Planning and Zoning Commission recommendations for a long time. But I'm really struggling with this one. The other thing I want to bring out, and I'm going to take full responsibility for this for last week. But when we did our first reading on the 5th of August, I made it clear I wanted to make it subject to a site plan that would not only go to Planning and Zoning Commission, but that would also be reviewed by the City Council. Last week on the 12th, our second reading, none of that was carried forward. And that was my mistake. I wish I would have said, I want the second reading to incorporate what we did in the first reading. But I went back to the minutes and we did not do that. So I have a real problem with that. I don't want to lose the fact of the site plan. But now, having said that I think the site plan could help, when I look at the facts that have been presented so far, I'm not convinced a site plan will answer the question. And this is not a reflection on Knife River. They are a great corporate citizen. They are great people. But keep in mind, and I learned this early on in planning and zoning, that the zoning and the site plan, it runs with the title to the land. And so as owners change, as successors come in, as whatever happens, as expansions are done, as new councils are elected, some are getting reelected, but as we move forward with everything that can be a moving part, a site plan isn't necessarily the answer or the zoning. It can be a real problem for a residential area that's that close to heavy industrial use. And so I think the site plan is important, but I'm not sure it's going to do the job we need. And I'll give you an example. And we had a lead citizen resident raise this. We're talking about access points. I tried to drive typically, and I learned this again back in planning and zoning, and I learned this as a lawyer, you have to go look at the site. You have to see the site to see what you're really talking about here. And I had a very difficult time looking at the site. I think I saw the site. I liked when we used to go with the, on the drives with the staff, and they would just say, they'd point to it and they'd say, from here to here. And I talked to the mayor briefly about this. But I'm concerned about the access points to this property. And what this Leeds resident raised was there's only one access point on the S-curve of 41st Street between two railroad tracks. That's what I need to have you confirm, that yes, this property is between two railroad tracks. And if the tracks to the east are blocked by a train, then the 150 plus trucks that have on a peak season, or during a peak season, 150 plus trucks per day would have to drive on Floyd Boulevard. Is that accurate, Chris, as far as just in theory, if the tracks are blocked on the one side, there's only one way to get out? I'm just not sure where the access points are. Maybe a site plan would show that, but I don't know. But I'd be concerned about the railroad traffic as well. The other concern I had that I don't think has been properly addressed is the dust that would be created. Now, some have answered that to me by saying, well, the tree line will work as a buffer to stop the dust from going over into the residential neighborhood of Leeds. And I guess I haven't had very good luck with trees over the years because they do die, they get replaced, And I don't know what all the dust, I don't know how much dust we're talking about, but I wouldn't want to rely on trees to be a buffer to block all dust that would be going into a residential area, whether it's Leeds or whether we're on the north side or we're on Morningside, any part of the city, Riverside. It just doesn't seem like it's a good fit to go forward with this. The site has 200 feet of frontage on 41st Street to the north, and I just see with heavy industry that we might be creating problems that I would not want to have for Knife River or any of their successors, and I don't want to have the problems for the residents of Leeds. I just don't think it's I don't see, and I don't want them to go to the expense of a site plan because that's expensive, and then cut it back and say, well, no, we need more land than that to use for our operation. Or a successor might come in and say, we need more land to use for our expansion or for that operation. Or we might want it, you know, there's something new might come along in heavy industrial technology that would be very important to have at that location. I just think it's too close to the residential neighborhood of Leeds. And I think the air quality might be a concern with safety issue. Now, other lawyers may correct me on this, and I'm not speaking as a lawyer, but as a councilman that's very concerned about this project. But I've also seen is who's there first that's going to be creating a nuisance if there's ever a real issue. And will the Leeds residents be told that this is a civil problem? You have to handle it yourself. You're on your own against the company, or the company against the residents. If there are any issues that would come up, what's the plan look like? And how can that be solved and resolved? We've had other issues in the city that sometimes it's very difficult. It's a very expensive process. It's a very long process to correct something that wasn't exactly anticipated to be what everybody thought it would be. Chris, in your report was really good. I reread it 2 or 3 times, and you pointed out the environmental effects likely associated with industrial uses include noise. We've talked about that. Light, odor, vibration, and other visible and sensory impacts. And without really being deliberate on a solution for some of these so that they could coexist with the residential neighborhoods of Leeds, which is an important part of our community. We stress that all the time. The mayor all the time says we're going to treat all the neighborhoods equally. So would we be having this discussion if it were in Morningside, Northside, Riverside? And I think we would be, but Leeds is an important part of our community. So that's what I'm struggling with. And I'm talking to you as a plan and zoning person, just saying I'm not hopeful that the site plan is going to be the answer, and I don't want to mislead anybody on this. And I got to just tell you, I felt really lousy last week because that second reading just was taken on a vote without any discussion from any of us. I'll say from me, that was my fault. I could have spoke up. I could have said, and the mayor always gives me the floor, and I'll say, Mayor, I've got some things to say. I wish I would have said these things last week, but I didn't. I didn't even bring up the site plan. So that's where I am with it. I'm also concerned, just to be real transparent with everybody, I'm concerned that we have 4 of us here. Mr. O'Kane is absent today. Not sure we want to, I could be wrong. I don't know what the vote will be, but I'm not sure I would want to take a vote with an even number of council people here. Might want to defer it a week when Mr. O'Kane can be here.
I won't be here next week. Just so you know.
Well, what I try to do is and this might have been last minute, I'm not sure what happened, but if I'm going to be absent and there's something on the agenda, I'll call the mayor and I'll say, would you please defer this because I really want to participate in it.
Yeah, he's sick in his defense.
He's sick, okay, yeah. I'm sorry to hear that. But in any event, that's what I wanted to say. I think it's difficult for all of us because of Knife River's reputation and being an excellent corporate citizen. But we also have the leads, and it's just too close. And I don't want to start repeating myself, but it's just that heavy industrial is just too close to the residential.
Chris Mackin, Senior Planner. I guess just to answer some of your questions regarding the rail, there is rail on both the west and east side of the site. I can't guess how they would operate their business. If there is a train on the east side of the site, if they would then utilize leads to exit the site. I could guess that that's the only access they would have at that moment, but I can't tell you how they would operate.
But you can't tell us that anyway, and I'm not being argumentative. You can't, they're not a tanker truck. You can't embargo them to not drive down Floyd Boulevard.
Correct.
And they're going to, because and nothing against them. In asphalt, the shortest haul is how you make money. You don't go 10 blocks out of your way with 30 trucks to a job site. You go to the shortest route. That's business. I don't have as big a problem with the trucks. We'll figure that out, but go ahead. I mean, that's just something you can't control even if you want to.
Correct. Site plan that would show their access, how many access points they would have. Likely would be one off of 47 or 41st Street, Tyler to the north. It's their only frontage on a street unless they were somehow to get another access point, but that would be shown on a site plan. There's requirements of, how wide that driveway can be, what material it would have to be, so that would be reviewed. As far as fugitive dust or other materials, it would have to be on a complaint basis. If we receive a complaint, either planning staff, environmental staff would go out and investigate the site, tell them the remedy of the issue. Correct, we wouldn't be able to solve that kind of a problem by site plan.
One thing I would say, if the council at the end of the day votes for this, the site plan that's going to be terribly important is how much of that lot has asphalt coverage. Because that's what's going to generate that many truck movements without some sort of hard surface road is what's going to cause you the most problems.
Do we know how much of the 30 acres they're actually going to have their operation utilizing?
I believe they're going to use most of it. Some of the site would be utilized as drainage as part of a city project. And if it did come back as a site plan to council, you would have the ability to control how much of the site would be hardscaped or a dust or gravel type material. You would have the ability to say 100% of the site or a portion of the site.
Well, what if we brought it back in 2 weeks when we know?
I believe Labor Day fall the first.
It does, it's the first full weekend, okay.
So then it would be the 9th of September would be the next.
Well, if we could get like a preliminary site plan that shows the footprint of, where they plan to place things, how much hardscape they plan to have. I mean, it doesn't have to have all the infrastructure. I mean, maybe it's more affordable.
Hold it. Can you move that down just so I make sure I'm picked up? For anyone that is listening, I want to make sure it's picked up. Yeah, I think that when it would come back to the site plan is when we would be able to direct that, or to the mayor's point, be able to talk to them about that. I just want to say a few things, Dave, to some of your points, and then I'll try to make sense of where I am at on this vote and some of the things that I've considered and tried to weigh with this development, because I agree with Dan. A lot of our decisions are very difficult, and some are weigh on us a little more than others, and this certainly is something that I've cared a lot about and I've thought a lot about. But one thing that I wanted to say first and foremost, especially to you, is that I truly appreciate your willingness to engage in a dialogue, and at least in a very respectful manner, be able to share your viewpoint, and I think you're articulate and present arguments, counter arguments, and those types of things. I really appreciate that. And I hope I genuinely mean that, because so often people aren't willing to do that nowadays. Even if we disagree at the end of the day, I hope we can respect each other of where we're coming from. And I will say, with this site and this site plan, it's really difficult for me to think that this is the best use of the property and this is what I would want there. And if I could choose something, this is what I would choose to be there. That might not be the case, but I also feel that it's not my position to necessarily dictate that either, and to be able to stop private business from happening. I have to think about the zoning and the impact it's going to have. And so then I go back and I say, well, I want to see the site plan and know where it's going to be laid out to see the impact overall that it's going to make. Because I at least hope that I was very explicit with Knife River of what I'm going to be looking for and what I will and won't vote for come when we see the site plan, of whether or not I will be in support of it or not, because I want to make sure that they're taking those things into account, of how much dust will be created. Because, Dan somewhat alluded to that, is that I don't know how much dust is going to be created. I don't know how bad the odor, how bad the sound and all of that will be. So it's really difficult for me to vote no on a project based off of that speculation and that fear. I did go, I actually pulled up on Google Maps. I, like Dan, tried to do a little bit of my homework, pulled up on Google Maps, their current location and any other industries or areas that are being impacted. And, I don't have kids or grandkids, so I don't go to the ball fields often, with a lot of frequency. I have went to the animal rescue shelter on a number of different occasions. And I will tell you, on every one of those occasions that I've traveled down there, whether it was visiting city staff, whether it was going to animal rescue or any of those other businesses down there, I never noticed a smell. I never saw an excess amount of dust besides the gravel that was on maybe some of those surrounding lots. But if we can mitigate that with the site plan, I'm confident that hopefully no one will be as impacted as maybe we fear. And I hope that makes sense. So I was trying to look, and maybe someone can correct me if I'm wrong, or Chris, if we've received complaints from Headed that said, wow, the smell is overpowering, there's always dust in the air. But it's also difficult to isolate that to one business entity when there's a number of gravel surfaces down in that area. So I recognize that as well. So while I also think that this might not have the best access as far as to roadway, ingress and egress, I understand that it does have access to rail, which would be advantageous probably to them. But I can't make that business decision for them ultimately. And so while I am greatly concerned with how it will impact the Leeds residents and want to be vigilant with that, I feel that my best way to do that, that's most fair and just, is through the site plan rather than just denying them this opportunity here. That's ultimately where I came to the decision, and I hope that somewhat makes sense.
I move we defer for 3 weeks. September 9th.
Yeah, I'll second.
Shaner?
Hang on.
Oops, we got somebody else.
Sorry,
So
I just
sorry.
want to make a public comment. Tricia Rivers, I live at 32 North Martha Street, which is not that far away from Leeds. So I actually didn't know about this, so I thank you. I do live out there, and I do know that there are a lot of accidents on 41st and Outer Drive. I also know that that train, those darn trains, can block that railroad way. And so my concern would be, we have school starting, and so what kind of traffic would that create? And yeah, I know that there's a lot of accidents out there. Also too, as far as, we are leaders here in this community, and I think that it would be advantageous for everyone, maybe even doing a listening session where maybe some of our representatives from our city council could go out to the Leeds community and actually get to meet some of these folks and hear what they have to say about it. I know that some of these things are, determined by private businesses and Iowa code and all those things. However, people should have a say in people over profit. So I'll keep it at that. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Golf's coming up.
This is an existing business, Knife River. If you took a map and you take a pin and you draw from
Got to put your name and address off, sorry.
Dolph Ivener, 3400 Talbot Road.
Thank you.
If you put a pin from where these guys would create dust or what they would do, they are going to be further from residents where they're going than where they are right now. And I know that Floyd Boulevard is a very busy corridor, right? And if they were creating dust and stink and all of these egregious things, I drive up and down it 5 times a day, 6 times a day, you know, you would notice. And so it would be different if this industry didn't exist already and it wasn't around and it was this like unknown. I mean, but just like Alex says, I drive on Hawkeye Drive all the time. You don't really know they're backwards. You're back there. And something else about the site. If you're a concerned citizen, they have millions of gallons of fuel sitting right next to that site.
They do.
They are taking a railroad track, filling it with jet fuel, running it in your backyard at 43 miles an hour. I mean, this is not the unknown. I mean, we know what this is, and the scary things that are already there, and you have to remember, that's the difficulty with the land. This is the best use for the land. Who else is going to go next to 8 million gallons of jet fuel?
Between 2 railroads.
Between 2 railroad tracks. That's it. I mean, this is what you have, and they're already there. And if you draw a pin, they're probably no further where they're at than where they're going from some of these people's homes. If you drew the distance. So,
that's what I did across Floyd as well, because then you have Spalding Park and everything else that's probably about the same distance.
Yeah. So I mean, this is I understand their complaint, but you visually see it every day, and you never called to complain before, and now all of a sudden it's a boogeyman. And it's not a boogeyman. And they're really good guys to deal with, and they're part of our community. And the fear is if we don't let them go there, they've already said they don't want to go south. They're going to keep going north. If we lose them to the north, then they go to Plymouth County, and then in Plymouth County, they'll license every one of those trucks in Plymouth County, right? You know, all the road tax, all of that stuff we'll lose out because they have to move. I mean, they basically said it. The EPA's, they got to do something. Well, let's keep them in our community. Right.
Two things. We don't get the road use tax money. That goes to the state.
But the state then feeds, that's true.
So we don't get that. But that's beside the point. But the other thing is, listen, I think they're a great corporate citizen. They do great things in this community. I don't have any problem with them that way. But to say that we've never had complaints on their facility is not the truth. We'll gladly get that for you. Era's not here, but it's more than you think. When they fire that plant up, we get all kinds of complaints. Your friend Dave Bernstein complains about it all the time. Because when they fire that plant up in the spring, the odor is horrendous and it floats down that valley. Fortunately, it goes south because it's still a north wind. But if that were to change, it's a problem.
We're not going to have an east wind. East winds are not going to start coming heavily. But
I'm telling you, I phoned it in myself.
I understand that. But from your house, you're going to smell Barclay, who is right there too. So we already have a guy.
So I drive down. We'll get, Bob, get us the report on both the asphalt plants. So, all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Call the roll, please. On the deferral.
Shaner.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Waters.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
12 is a hearing and resolution approving plans and specs for the annual storm inlet repair project. I'll move that.
Second.
Public hearing's now open. Anyone to be heard? Seeing none, the hearing is closed. Passes 4-0. 13 is a hearing and resolution approving plans and specs for the terminal roof replacement project at the airport. I'll move that.
Second.
Hearing's now open. Anyone to be heard? Seeing none, the hearing is closed. Passes 4-0. 14 is a hearing and resolution accepting the proposal of DLG Properties for the land in the combined Central Sioux City CBD urban renewal area and authorizing the sale of the property at 815 West 8th Street. I'll move that.
Second.
Public hearing is now open. Anyone to be heard? Seeing none, the hearing is closed. Passes 4-0. 15 is a hearing and resolution authorizing a $300 civil penalty against Fleet Farm Fuel for violation of the cigarette laws. I'll move that.
Second.
Hearing's now open. Anyone to be heard? Seeing none, the hearing is closed. Passed 4-0. Citizen concerns. Any citizen want to be heard, please come to the microphone, state your name and address, please. Seeing none, we'll go to council. Julie.
I don't have any.
The young man in the Boy Scouts or something, is that why he's here, or just here to see a council meeting? Yes. Okay, good.
Got a couple, yeah.
Well, good for him. Alex.
I actually don't believe that I have anything that's pertinent either. I've followed up with city staff on a number of different issues, but I'm appreciative of all their work on various projects and things that are happening, but no, I don't have anything today.
More.
Mayor, our tax statements have recently been mailed out and have been received, and there's been some phone calls and misunderstandings. I'm going to try to explain this as best I can. For those of us that signed an application last year for the 65-plus exemption, and what that is this year you'd get $3,250 subtracted from your net taxable value on your property, on your house. When you get your tax statement, it'll say 65-plus exemption, and there'll be a blank there, and you'll think, well, they didn't give me my exemption that I had applied for. And if you look to the right of the tax statement, on the right-hand side, you'll see that $3,250 amount that's there. But you still would want to confirm that that amount was in fact subtracted from your net taxable value to arrive at your taxes.
But it's not coming off the tax that is due. It's coming off the assessed value, right?
Oh, yeah,
Well,
right.
Right, I had to clarify that for someone. There was a little misunderstanding about
Like
it.
$120.
Well, I was going to finish.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. So the tax amount that comes off is about $122. That's what we're talking about. But also next year, it'll be $6,000, 6,000 something. But, so check it. Now, what the assessor told me was, he said, take your paper tax statement and go online and see what your tax amount is there. And if that matches, then you've got the $3,250. But to make the mayor proud of me, what I did on my own is I took the net taxable value that was shown times the mill levy, which is like 37 point something, and figured it that way. And then I took my net taxable amount, subtracted, don't you love this? I'm doing some math here, arithmetic, $3,250. I subtracted that, took it times the mill levy, and that's what my tax amount was. So there are a lot of calls on that they're not showing. And so just make sure for the 65-plus crowd that you get your 65-plus exemption if you made the application for it. Mayor, that's all I have.
I'll tell you after the meeting how proud I am of you for that. Now, let's move to it.
Yeah, I knew I would. Second, sorry.
Scott.
Aye.
Moore.
Forget the second. Aye.
Shaner.